How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How about you?
All right. Okay, Ajit. Let's start with the interview. Okay, Ajit. Let's start with the introduction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Ajit, as you know, and I'm working with Node.js mainly. Okay, like I'm having like 5 years and 10 months of experience in total. Okay, and currently I'm working with App Inventive. Okay, Chandigarh. Okay, and like I work on few product. Like I'm telling you. Okay, like the first I'm working is aggregator platform, which is currently I'm working with. Okay, and the previously I work on the content marketing platform. Okay, some e-commerce also. Okay. Some of the like real-time applications like taxi booking and food delivery applications. So these are the applications kind of I've worked on so far.
Okay. Ajit, particularly on Node, what is your experience?
Particularly in Node, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually mainly if you consider like more than 5 years in Node.js.
Okay. Fine. And as you mentioned, you have worked on React as well, right?
Yeah, I do have work on React also.
What is the experience with React?
2.5 years close to.
Okay. Fine. Okay, Ajit, can you tell me what is Node.js?
Yeah, so yeah, Node.js is basically JavaScript library basically, okay, which is basically used for server-side scripting. Okay, so yeah, that is we can say that it's not language completely, but it's the JavaScript library. Okay, which you can use for the server-side and scripting.
Okay. And what is the difference between Node.js and JavaScript?
Okay, so JavaScript basically a programming language. Okay, and Node.js is basically scripting, which is using the JavaScript itself. Okay, by using JavaScript, Node.js gives you all these JavaScript properties to use it.
Okay. Ajit, what is middleware?
So middleware is basically something to validate the request. Basically, like let's suppose you have a request, okay, and you want to validate, authorize, or authenticate something before proceeding further. Okay, so that's why we use middleware to validate all the requests is valid or not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can we manipulate request response data using middleware?
of course we can do.
Ajit, what is coarse middleware?
Yeah, coarse middleware is something to like allow some of the specific origin basically. Okay, let's suppose you have an server, okay, and that is basically by default open for all. Okay, so we don't want to open for all. Okay, so we'll allow only for some specific origin which is have the access to use those services.
Okay. And what about helmet middleware?
So helmet middleware basically used for the like API security value. Okay, so they have added you around 13 to 14 middleware environment, so which is validating all the requested. Okay, so once you use a request something, okay, so it's passed to the helmet, and there will be validate all the every security patches.
Okay. But what about particularly for helmet? Specifically, what it targets?
So it basically hide the some of the information to users. Okay, like suppose uh, when we are sending a response to user. Okay, so we'll send header also. Okay, in the header like we'll send the most of the information like what version we are using, what framework we are using. Okay, all these things. Okay. So middleware hide those requested response. Okay, so user will not gonna know like what are the technology we are going to using in the background.
Okay.
So there are like 13 or 14 middleware more. Okay, and like I'm telling you, I don't remember all of the name. Okay, so but yeah, these are the some of them things like I
Okay.
accidentally.
Okay. Okay. Ajit, can you tell me what is Redis and have you worked on it?
What is
Have you worked on Redis?
Redis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have worked on. So Redis is basically a database which is in-memory database, okay, and which is used for the caching. Caching. I mainly used for the caching side.
Okay. What about Socket.io? Have you worked on it?
Yeah, I do have work on Socket also. Yeah. So basically, it is used for the real-time updates. Okay, so whenever you need to update from something real-time, okay, from the client and server, okay, so that's where I prefer to use Socket.io.
Okay. So, what was the purpose you were using Redis or Socket.io for your application?
Yeah, so the purpose is to using Redis. Okay, so is to manage the caching. Okay, so like caching for me is like suppose I have an user. Okay, which is having some data. Okay, that is repetitive data. Okay, so I don't want to query my database every time. Okay, so whenever they request. Okay, so I do save in the Redis. Okay, so next time when they call those API, will fetch from the Redis itself. Like I will not query the database. So that way, it will respond faster. And Socket.io I'm using for the real-time update. I already told you. Okay, like suppose I have a client pages. Okay, and we have another user which is frequently changing the what we say, changing their resources or whatever their information. Okay, and I need to update it from everywhere. Okay, so that's where I can use Socket.io. So it will be update real time for all the users.
Okay. Ajit, have you worked on MongoDB?
Yes, I do have work on MongoDB.
Okay. Can you tell me why MongoDB is preferred in Node.js?
So whenever we are using a real-time updation, like okay, so that's where we prefer MongoDB. Okay, because it is very faster to insert and update. Okay, and compared to any relational database. Okay, so it is unstructured also. Okay, so you don't need to define a very specific structure to use. Okay, it is very fast and it is basically update very quick time. That's why.
Okay. To add something in MongoDB using Mongoose, we have save function and create function. Can you explain the difference between uses of these two?
Both are using to insert data. Okay, so I think in create we are using the schema file. Okay, and in save we must have to their object itself. We cannot save directly if we don't have their instance. Okay, just have to initiate those schema in order to use the save. Okay, in create we can directly use the schema. We don't need to define a instance or something. Okay, so this is the one difference for the syntax wise. Okay, and if I talk about the like in the behind the scene. Okay, I think save. Well, by the way, save is also using multiple instance. Okay. I don't know any other difference right now.
Okay.
Maybe, but if you ask me for this, my relational database creating basically we can use for the transaction side also. Okay, but I don't think in MySQL in MongoDB we are using this for.
Okay. Fine. Ajit, why we use lean function in MongoDB?
Which function?
Lean, Lean.
Okay, lean function is basically convert your response to JSON. Okay, so like you have a multiple response, so that you clean it. Okay, it can follow your proper JSON format.
Okay. What is the difference between callback function and promise?
Okay, so the callback function is just like a normal function. Okay, we just pass an argument as a function. Okay, in any function, will passing just as an argument. Okay, and it will give you return. Okay, whenever you call the callback function, you will get a response. Okay, promises not work like way. Okay, promise will give you return whenever the promise will be fulfilled. Okay, or it may be rejected. Okay, so whether in both the cases will give you response. Okay, but yeah, there is one difference. The background side, if you're talking about, okay, promise will be handled different way. Okay, and callback is handled in different way by Node.js. Okay, these are the different. Okay, so like promise is handled in the micro queue, and callback function is handled in the normal like event queues. So these are the one difference.
Okay, if I ask you to choose between promise and a callback function, which should be the ideal one to be used?
Depend on the requirement. Okay, so basically it's depend like what are the use cases there. Okay, so it's totally depend on the use case. Okay. What are the use cases? If I think like I can do with the callback, okay, it's not like that. If I can do with the callback, I cannot do with promise. Like we can do in both way. Okay, but it depend on the promise scenario. Okay, so what is the best use there? Okay, sometimes we don't need to use promises to we just can manage in the callback also. Okay, sometimes we need to have to use the promise in order to get those data further. Okay, so depend on use cases. Okay, we cannot say that this is the good, this is the not good. Okay,
Okay,
like this.
Okay, Ajit, can you explain async works synchronously or asynchronously? And if yes, explain why.
So async work asynchronously, okay, which is JavaScript asynchronous way. Okay, we cannot make it synchronous at anyhow. Okay, it work asynchronously way. Okay, so what you do whenever you use async, okay, it will return you promise. Okay, and whenever it return promise, okay, it will handle in the micro queue itself. Okay, so your next task will still be performed. Okay, but when we have added await there, okay, so it will wait to give you response till the time. Okay, whenever you get the promise resolved, okay, next task will be performed immediately just after the await statement. It won't take time.
Okay. Ajit, have you worked on microservices?
I do have work one project on microservices. Okay, that is a microservice project in my previous company.
Okay. Can you explain what is microservices?
Yeah, microservice is something like when we split the task, okay, on the different services. Like we have an e-commerce application, and there are the multiple modules like order and the payment, multiple modules, notifications, okay, email services. So that's where we split the task. So it will be divided throughout the servers, okay. So like on the one server, we don't have the much request there, okay. So that's why we create microservices.
Okay. Ajit, can you tell me what is MVC architecture and why we use MVC architecture?
Okay, so basically when we are seeing MVC, okay, it does give you an some always a framework kind of thing. Okay, so that will have some managed things. Okay, so there are for some folder for a schema, some folder for the controller, some folder for the model, or all this. We will have some managed architecture there. Okay, so that's where your code will be more readable, and you can use those for reusability also. Okay, so like suppose I have a model. Okay, I don't want to create a model for every time. Okay, I'll just use the same object everywhere. Okay, so that's where the MVC will help you a lot to use reusability of class and codes, all these things.
Okay. Ajit, what do you understand by code reusability and how do you apply it in an application to make it optimized?
Okay, so code reusability means something like you have some functions, okay, and you have some class, okay. So you want to use the same code for the multiple time. Like suppose I have a function to get the users, okay. I will call the same function for every time when I want to get the users, okay. I won't try it multiple times, okay. So that's where I reuse the code, okay, for the multiple time, okay. So that's where we will not create any conflict in future, okay. So let's say we have multiple source of get users, okay. So that's why if I need to change any of them, I will do change in one function. I might not do in the others, okay. So that will create an issue in the future, okay. That's where these things are help a lot in a big long term.
Okay. Okay, Ajit, if I ask you to create an application from scratch and I want you to make it a secure application, so how will you make it a secure application? What will you do for its security purpose?
Like security, not in terms of the coding itself, okay. It will mostly on the server side also, okay, and the coding side also, okay. So it's not a mix up of both, okay. We cannot say like your code is totally secure, okay. It won't have, okay. You need to make sure to handle on the both sides, server side also. Your server should be also secure, and your code is also secure. So I'm going to explain you the code wise, okay.
Okay.
Let's suppose I'm creating application, okay. I do make sure that all the API requests should be validated, okay. No third party users should call our API, okay. So of course we will use a course there, okay. We should add a throttling there so no one can attack on our server like constantly calling those our request, okay. We'll use throttling there. We'll use helmet package as you said, okay. We will use some authentication purpose like we can use basic auth, okay, to enable the only for those users who have the API key, okay. So we can use the auth 0 for the user authorization, okay, user authentication, okay. So these are the things like we will take care of when we start project, okay. At the backend side, okay, I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay, Ajit, have you ever worked on Kafka or RabbitMQ?
Like I have worked on Kafka in one project. I didn't just to work on every time, okay. Yeah. That is not a very different typical thing, okay. Work on, but yeah, I don't have work on every time.
Okay, so any basic idea why we use these for?
So these are messaging services. Okay, let's suppose you have multiple services there. Okay, I want to send a message from one server to another server. Okay, that's what these things are going to use.
Okay, fine. Ajit, have you worked on Docker?
And like I do have work, but like I don't not much expertise. I don't have much expertise in this. Okay, but like, I do have basic knowledge, like how to create Docker file. Okay, how to containerize the basic applications here.
Okay. And what is the what about Kubernetes?
No, I don't have any idea of Kubernetes.
Okay. Okay, Jeet, if I have an application and I want to move it from monolithic architecture to microservices architecture, then why should I do it? What will be the benefit of doing it?
So like suppose you have a one monolithic project already. Okay, so it means everything is in only one project. Okay, one service. Okay, so all the requests you will pass, it will go through the same server. Okay, so that's why that there might chances. Okay, so you will have to increase your bandwidth. Okay, to fulfill all the requests. Okay, so there might chance that user will face the latency there. Okay, so in order to get all those requests fulfilled by one server. Okay, so like suppose you have a 10 thing and you will manage by like suppose you have an e-commerce platform. Okay, you are submitting order. Okay, so what we'll do, we will create an order, then processing order, then make payment. Okay, then if payment fail, then you will process the return way, so return their payment. Okay, then cancel those order. Okay, so these things are going on. This will take time. Okay, if you do everything on the same server. Okay, then if any of the server goes down, okay, any of the process goes down, your all the response will be shut down. Okay, these are some drawback. Okay, so we will use the microservice, like any of the server will go down. Okay, we'll have a monitoring system there, and our main server won't get stopped. Okay, we'll still working on those. That will the next request will still work on. Okay, and you can reduce the latency issue. You can pass it through the different servers. Okay, so that's the benefit. Okay, so using microservices, these are the main things that why microservices are introduced.
Okay. Ajit, can you explain what is aggregation in MongoDB and how do we apply it?
Aggregation is something like suppose you are like doing multiple things in a single query. Like suppose you want to get a sorting and group by and lookups and all these things. That's what aggregation will get work. Okay, use for. Okay, if you just want to use the from to single schema, you don't need to use aggregation. You can do with the find and all these things. Okay, but you are doing a multiple things. Okay, then that's where aggregation work.
Okay. And what about indexing? Have you ever worked on indexing?
Yeah, I do have work on indexing also. So indexing is basically used for to efficient our query, make efficient to our queries. Okay, let's suppose I have 1 million of record. I want to search for only single column, like suppose name. Okay, so that's where create indexing. Okay, so they have all the sorted way. So it will give you the faster result. It won't search for the whole schema. Okay, to search only for the specific ID or name what it is.
Okay, if I'll do compound indexing, and I have done on two fields, like one is age field and another is gender field in for a student database. Okay, and I have done on both using command indexing. And if I start to find query for gender, which kind of scan it will do? Collection scan or index scan?
So like if you have a composite index, compound index, okay, and you are searching for only one column, then it will scan normal. Okay, but if you search on both the columns same time, then only it will use the other index. Okay, otherwise it won't gonna use.
Okay, and if I have done on age for single field, what will it do? Collection scan or index scan?
Yeah, then it will do indexing. Like if you have single column index, okay, and you are searching on the single column itself, okay, then only your index gonna use. If these things not both the conditions are fulfilled, then only index will work. Okay.
No, but see, when I'm using the age, you're saying index will be working, and if I'm saying on gender, you're saying collection scan will happen. So why does this? Why? What is the reason of that?
Gender is a string. Okay. Age is a number. Okay. So when you are searching on it, it will search a bandit search. Okay. So that's what it will search on the your index. Okay. But in gender, you will have a compound index. Okay. So that's where it's not search.
Okay. Okay, if I have a database in which I am doing a lot of write operations, so if I'll do indexing on it, so will it be ideal to do it or I shouldn't do it?
Can you repeat? I didn't get it.
I'm saying if I have a database on which I want to do indexing, it
Okay.
is quite large database, but I'm doing a lot of write operations on it. So will it be ideal to use indexing on it or not?
Like it should depend like what type of column you have. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I need to know that like what type of what information you are writing most. Okay. And which column you have created indexes. Okay. So these things I need to know.
Okay, if it is a database of students who are having name, ID, age,
Okay.
and bio, and I'm
Mhm.
updating bio again and again.
You are updating or you are creating?
I'm updating.
Okay. So like whenever you have multiple update operations, okay. So if you have created index, that will be very costly operations. Okay. That is not ideal. Okay. Because every time you update, your index will gonna suffer. Okay. So that will take a time and that will be very costly operations. Okay. So you should not do this. Okay. If you are writing, then it will work. Okay. Like you are creating a new request. Okay. But you are updating multiple times. That's what is not ideal actually. I would say.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, Ajit, do one thing. Share your screen and open any compiler, be it local, be online one, whichever you are comfortable with. I'll give you some questions. You have to do it. Okay. Okay, Ajit. It's done from my side. I will share the report with the chat and she'll update. Okay.
Okay.